Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. The new version of Owlcat's Rogue Trader Beta that was released to content creators came with a couple of new classes. Without a doubt, I get the most questions regarding Grand Strategist, so even though I plan to comb through the mechanics of the original Archetypes as well, I thought some of you would appreciate starting with this one first. Grand Strategist is all about controlling the battlefield to buff your party members while debuffing enemies and doing some decent damage in between. Honestly, I love this archetype, and I think Owlcat did an amazing job of making the mechanics very layered, but also very rewarding if you understand them. Before we peel back the layers, let me remind everyone that here at Slandered Gaming, we focus on RPGs, and more specifically, CRPGs. You can find builds, guides, and live streams for games like Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, Baldur's Gate 3, and Pillars of Eternity. If that kind of stuff interests you, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Alright, so to select this class, you need to first have 15 levels of either Operative or Officer. That probably sounds like a lot of levels, but they come fast and furious in Rogue Trader, so you'll reach that shortly at the end of Act 1. As you level up, this archetype lets you increase the Fellowship, Willpower, Intelligence, and Perception characteristics. This all lends very well to a ranged character, but you can absolutely use this archetype for a melee character if you prefer. The skills you can increase are Persuasion, Commerce, Demolition, Logic, Tech Use, Lower Imperium, and Lord Xenos. The keystone feature of this archetype is Combat Tactics. This feature ensures that your Grand Strategist always acts first in combat, unless you have an officer with the Seize the Initiative talent, which for whatever reason has priority over everything else. Combat Tactics gives you the ability to place 3 areas: a front line, back line, and rear. The frontline area gives a percentage bonus to armor, equal to 5 plus twice your intelligence bonus, and all enemies suffer a percentage increase to damage from any source equal to 5 plus twice your fellowship bonus. I have never increased fellowship for Pascal, but this still results in all enemies within the area taking 9% more damage, which is fantastic. Obviously, the armor increase makes your frontline significantly tankier as well. The rear area provides a percentage bonus to range damage and over penetration, equal to 5 plus twice your intelligence bonus. Penetration allows your shots to go through enemies and hit other enemies behind them, potentially letting you take out multiple foes with one shot. At this point in the game, Pascal provides a 17% increase to both stats, which is absolutely a massive boost. You'll also gain a percentage increase to critical hit chance, equal to 5 plus your fellowship bonus. This is only 7% for Pascal, but honestly, that's still pretty nice. Finally, the backline area provides a percentage bonus to cover efficiency, dodge, and dodge reduction, equal to 5 plus twice your intelligence bonus. Cover efficiency measures how good the cover actually is at protecting you from ranged shots, so all the way around, this makes your soft targets tankier. Again, you automatically go first. You have unlimited range to place all 3 of these areas, and all of them cost 0 action points to place. Bananas! You can only place all 3 areas at the same time during your first turn. On subsequent turns, only one of them can be created or moved, and these areas cannot overlap. Regardless, this feature is huge for buffing your entire party while debilitating enemies. Unfortunately, it's paired with an ultimate ability that's not nearly as impressive. Take and Hold allows you to choose one of your combat tactics areas, and the allies inside get an additional turn with 1 action point and 2 movement points at the start of your next turn. For every enemy who is killed within the area, your party will get 1 additional action point up to 3 and 2 additional movement points up to 6. The problem is, unless you heavily focus on melee combat, your enemies will oftentimes not be inside of your tactic areas. Instead, they are great for buffing the defensive abilities of softer targets who are using guns or psyker abilities to devastate enemies from afar. Even if you decide to use the areas on large groups of enemies, that still means most of your party members won't be there. This heroic act is by no means useless, but there are a ton of situations where it won't be all that helpful. The Desperate Measure version of this will reduce your action points to 1 until the end of combat. Yikes! Alright, now let's dive into the abilities this archetype provides. Kill zone stratagem is applied to one of the tactic areas you have deployed, and for 1 round, all enemies are forced to re-roll any successful dodge and parry tests against all attacks. Enemies who suffer damage and have less wounds than double your intelligence and fellowship bonus added together will immediately die. No question, this is a great option when you use a tactic area on an enemy group, especially since it only costs 1 action point. Overwhelming stratagem applies to one of the tactic areas you have deployed, and for 1 round forces enemies who are attacked to pass a willpower test, or allies gain covering. Covering causes enemies to experience a penalty to ballistic skill equal to 5 plus twice your intelligence and fellowship bonuses added together, along with a 25% penalty to rate of fire and a penalty to weapon skill equal to 5 plus your intelligence and fellowship bonus added together. Melee enemies have their movement points reduced by 3, and ranged enemies will try to get into cover. Personally, I don't like this because enemies have to get hit first for it to be activated, and it doesn't work on stronger enemies who you really want to have debuffed. Stronghold stratagem applies to one of the tactic areas you have deployed, and for 1 round, allies in the area gain a percentage bonus to armor equal to half of 3 plus your intelligence and fellowship bonus. They also cannot be overpenetrated, gain immunity to injuries and the prone effect, and they gain a bonus to deflection against area attacks equal to your intelligence and fellowship bonus divided by 4. All at the cost of 1 action point, so absolutely, I really like using this in the frontline area to ensure the party members taking the most heat get some extra protection. Blitz stratagem allows you to select a tactics area, and all allies within a range of cells equal to your intelligence and fellowship bonus added together will immediately move to that area. This movement doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity or spend movement points. It could be an interesting way to make the heroic act more effective, but personally, I still don't like it because positioning is a big deal, and I would not want to draw my entire party out of position, especially not to stand together where enemies can use nasty area of effects on us. Combat Locust stratagem lets you choose 1 tactic area, and all of the bonuses are doubled for 1 round. The disadvantage is that all other tactic areas are discharged and cannot be used on that turn. This could be super nice if you want to really blow up some enemies by changing that 9% extra damage to 18%, but I don't like removing the other tactic areas, so I skip this. Trench line stratagem lets you choose a tactic area, and for 1 round, all allies get a percentage bonus to cover efficiency equal to 5 plus your intelligence and fellowship bonus added together. Allies can also re-roll any failed characteristic test, and cover in the area doesn't suffer damage. If you have a lot of party members who utilize cover, this is definitely nice. My party only has a couple of characters that consistently hang back, so I skip this. Alright, that's all the abilities for this archetype, so let's move into the talents. Point of interest causes all of the combat tactics bonuses to be increased by a percentage amount equal to half of your intelligence and fellowship bonuses added together. This is only triggered if the area hasn't been moved for 2 rounds. Absolutely, you want to pick this up. There are a lot of fights where you'll need to reposition quite a bit, but there's also a lot of fights where you don't have much room to move and have to buckle down wherever you start, so this will help you. Diversion zone is triggered when you use a stratagem on the rear area, and for 1 round makes allies within the zone the lowest priority target for enemies. Unless you get killed or stunned, there's no reason you cannot use a stratagem every single round, and this will all but ensure your softest targets are completely ignored. Absolutely pick it up. Crossfire zone is triggered when you use a stratagem on the frontline area and gives allies a percentage bonus to dodge against other ally attacks equal to 10 plus twice your intelligence and fellowship bonuses added together. Nope, I'd rather just avoid friendly fire entirely, so I skip this. Enduring zone is triggered when you use a stratagem and grants all allies in the area a bonus to deflection against the next melee hit they suffer equal to your intelligence modifier. This isn't all that great by itself, but if your frontline characters are already stacking deflection, this will help them mitigate even more damage, and absolutely you should pick it up. Stirring Zone is triggered when you use a stratagem and gives all allies a +1 bonus to movement points. This ability stacks, and if most of your party is melee characters, I definitely think this is worth it. If more of them fight from range and don't need to move around as much, then I would skip this. Adjusting Frontline is triggered when there are more enemies than allies in the frontline area and gives allies in the area a percentage bonus to dodge and parry equal to half of 3 plus your intelligence and fellowship bonuses added together. If there are more allies than enemies, then your allies in the area receive the same percentage number as an increase to damage. If you use the frontline area consistently, then this is a no-brainer. Personal Zone gives the entire party that is within a tactics area a bonus to perception and agility equal to half of 3 plus your intelligence bonus. Even if you heavily invest in intelligence, the bonus isn't all that large, and I would skip this. Strong Point is triggered when you use a stratagem on a tactics area for the second time in the same turn and refund your action point. This is definitely worth it, as you should be using stratagems multiple times every turn, and getting an action point back helps ensure you have enough AP to attack. Personal Combat Zone gives allies the ability to reposition the combat tactics area they are currently in for 1 action point. No, I leave this to my Grand Strategist and skip this talent. Critical Zone is triggered when you use a stratagem on the backline area and gives allies a percentage bonus to critical hit chance against enemies that are protected by cover equal to half of 3 plus your intelligence and fellowship bonuses added together. The bonus isn't a crazy amount, and oftentimes your party won't have access to cover, so I wouldn't prioritize this, but if you have a talent to spare or you want to stack critical hit as high as possible, pick it up. Dashing Zone is triggered when you use a stratagem on a tactics area and gives allies in the area the ability to move 1 cell without provoking an attack of opportunity. There are a bunch of other ways to accomplish this, so I would skip this talent. Supporting Zone is triggered when you use a stratagem on a tactics area and gives you the ability to use all officer abilities on allies in the area regardless of distance. I think it's stronger to take Operative instead, but if you prefer to start with Officer, this is a talent to consider, as many of that archetype's abilities are of a shorter range if you are unable to use voice of command on the target. Strategic Perfection is triggered when you use a stratagem and gives you a stack of this effect. At 6 stacks, the next stratagem applies the benefits of all the stratagems you know, and then the stacks are removed. Absolutely, you'll want this because some of the fights are long, brutal encounters, and you'll use a dozen stratagems easily. Improved Strategy is triggered at the start of combat and gives you 1 unknown stratagem that can be used for 0 action points until the end of combat. Obviously, there are some other talents you should prioritize first, but this is really nice and definitely something you should pick up. Sniping Zone provides each ally in your rear area a percentage bonus to critical hit chance when they have no enemies in a 5-cell radius equal to half of 3 plus your intelligence and fellowship bonuses added together. The bonus is small, but it should also be very easy to trigger, so it might be worth picking this up. Shooting Gallery Zone is triggered if there are no enemies in your backline area and causes the first attack in a turn made by an ally to cost 1 action point less. Absolutely, you want this. Anything that helps your action economy is very welcome. Disputed Zone is triggered when an enemy is in the same combat zone as you and applies a penalty to their dodge and parry equal to half of 3 plus your intelligence and fellowship bonuses. If you are a melee character, this should be very easy to trigger and worth picking up. Strategic Offensive is triggered when an enemy is killed in your frontline area and increases the bonuses of all tactic areas by 1 until the end of combat. For sure, you should grab this, as melee enemies will regularly check into your frontline area and never check out. Respite Zone increases the healing allies in your rear area receive from medikits by an amount equal to 5 plus your intelligence and fellowship bonuses, and they also receive the same amount in temporary wounds. In addition, medikits cost 1 action point less. Personally, I didn't pick this up because I don't count on my front line being completely overrun, but depending on the difficulty you play, it might be really helpful. Inescapable Zone is triggered when you use the Kill Zone stratagem and imposes a negative 15 penalty on rerolls enemies attempt to make. I think this archetype has a lot of great talent options, so I skip this, and makes them dodge area attacks without movement, along with making them immune to all types of force movement. Otherwise, when an ally dodges an area effect, such as a grenade, they have to physically move out of the impacted area, which potentially pushes them out of the tactic zone. This is interesting, but it will only apply to 1 tactic area, so I skip it. Daunting Zone is triggered when an enemy must pass a willpower test due to overwhelming stratagem and applies a penalty equal to 5 plus twice your intelligence and fellowship bonuses. I don't like overwhelming stratagem, so therefore this doesn't appeal to me either. Opening Strategy allows you to use the first stratagem developed in a turn a second time for 0 action points. There's no stratagem I am interested in using twice on the same turn, so personally this is unappealing, but it might work well for you. Overcoming Zone is triggered when you use Stronghold stratagem and causes allies who should have received an injury to instead receive temporary wounds equal to your intelligence plus your fellowship bonus. Nah, just use proper tactics and don't let your party members get blown up. Finally, Blurred Locust is triggered when you use Combat Locust and allows one of the areas it removed to be recreated immediately. I hadn't seen this before working on this video, and it's actually very compelling. Limiting yourself to just 2 tactics areas isn't really a big deal. I would recommend picking this up. That wraps up all the information I have regarding the Grand Strategist. I'll continue covering the game up through its release, so again, let me know down in the comments if there's any particular videos you want to see. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. Take care.